Welcome to Gender Perspectives. This is the program where we explore the real-life impacts of identity, equity, and justice. And in today's episode, we turn our focus to the law specifically, how legal systems respond to discrimination and violence based on identity. Across the world, countless individuals face abuse, exclusion, and harm simply because of who they are, whether they are men or women. But are our laws doing enough to protect them? My name is Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. Stay with us as we break it down right after this break.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was
Why the main market is in chaos. People
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye.
we have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Welcome back. You're still watching Gender Perspectives. We bring clarity to the complex issues shaping lives and laws around the world. Now, gender and law refers to the way legal systems recognize, regulate, and often reinforce gender roles and identities. And historically, laws have reflected and perpetuated gender inequalities, mostly by favoring men in areas such as property rights, employment, and family law, while marginalizing women and gender diverse individuals. Now, in modern times, gender and law also explores how legislation can be used to promote equality, such as through anti-discrimination laws, reproductive rights, and legal recognition of gender identity. Now, in our background report today, we will take a closer look at how legal systems are responding to discrimination and violence. And around the globe, individuals continue to face targeted abuse and systemic inequality. And while many countries have introduced laws to protect against such harm, enforcement is often inconsistent and legal protections don't always extend to everyone. So let's take a look at that background report.
Legal responses refer to the actions taken by governments, courts, law enforcement agencies, and legal systems to prevent, address, and remedy unfair treatment or violence against individuals because of their gender identity, that is, how a person internally identifies as male, female, both, or neither, which may differ from the sex assigned at birth. These legal responses usually include anti-discrimination laws that make it illegal to discriminate against someone because of their gender identity in key areas of life such as employment, education, housing, access to healthcare and public services. Such laws ensure that everyone is treated equally and fairly, regardless of how they identify or express their gender. Hate crime legislation. Some countries have laws that recognize violence or harassment based on gender identity as a special category of crime called a hate crime. These laws often impose stricter penalties for crimes motivated by bias, help collect data on the extent of such violence, and signal that targeted violence will not be tolerated. Legal gender recognition. This refers to allowing individuals to change their gender on official documents, such as birth certificates, national identity cards, and passports. Legal recognition affirms a person's identity and helps them access services, employment, and travel without facing constant humiliation or legal obstacles. Protection from police abuse and arbitrary arrest. Legal responses also involve training law enforcement to respect the rights of individuals with diverse gender identities. This includes prohibiting unlawful arrest or profiling, investigating abuse or harassment by police, and ensuring equal protection under the law. Access to justice. This means ensuring that victims of discrimination or violence based on gender identity can report crimes safely, get legal representation, receive fair treatment in court. It also involves building a justice system that is sensitive and responsive to the needs of all individuals. Legal reforms and judicial interpretation. In some countries, courts have interpreted existing laws, such as constitutional protections against discrimination, to include gender identity. Legal responses may also include reforming outdated laws, challenging unjust practices in court, and expanding legal definitions to be more inclusive. Public legal education. Legal responses include efforts to educate the public about rights and protections under the law. This helps reduce stigma, empower individuals to seek justice, and promote a culture of respect and equality. Discrimination and violence based on gender identity is an issue that is increasingly drawing global attention, but remains highly sensitive and controversial in Nigeria. Individuals whose gender identity does not align with traditional expectations often face severe stigma, social exclusion, harassment, and in many cases, physical violence. The question for legal and policy actors in Nigeria is whether the existing legal framework adequately protects such individuals, and if not, what should be done. Nigeria's legal system currently offers no direct protection against discrimination based on gender identity. In fact, the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act of 2014, while primarily targeting same-sex unions, has had a broader impact, leading to increased policing of gender expression and identity. Although the law does not explicitly address gender identity, it has been widely used to justify arrest, harassment, and abuse of individuals perceived as not conforming to traditional gender roles. Furthermore, there are no provisions in Nigeria's constitution or anti-discrimination laws that specifically protect individuals on the basis of gender identity. The constitution prohibits discrimination on grounds such as sex, religion, or ethnicity, but the term sex has not been interpreted by Nigerian courts to include gender identity. This legal gap leaves many individuals vulnerable, without a clear path to seek justice when they face mistreatment or violence. In terms of violence, reports from human rights organizations have documented cases of physical assaults, arbitrary arrest, denial of health care, and even mob attacks on individuals perceived as different in terms of gender presentation. Unfortunately, such cases often go unreported due to fear of further victimization by law enforcement or community members. Where victims do report, justice is rarely served due to bias and lack of awareness within the criminal justice system. Despite these challenges, Nigeria is not isolated from global human rights standards. International instruments such as the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which Nigeria has ratified, affirm the rights to dignity, security, and non-discrimination for all individuals. The African Commission has also issued resolutions condemning violence and other human rights violations on the basis of real or perceived gender identity. These provide a foundation for potential legal reform and advocacy. Across the continent and beyond, some countries have begun to revise their laws to be more inclusive. For instance, courts in Botswana and Kenya have issued rulings affirming the rights of individuals to legal gender recognition and freedom from discrimination. These examples offer potential models for how Nigerian legal institutions could respond to similar challenges in a rights-respecting and culturally contextualized manner. Moving forward, legal reform in Nigeria must be grounded in the principles of human dignity, access to justice, and protection for all citizens. This includes opening national conversations about the role of law in protecting people from violence, regardless of public opinion on issues of gender or morality. Legal protections do not require social acceptance, but they do require a commitment to justice and the rule of law. In conclusion, while Nigeria currently lacks legal protections for individuals based on gender identity, there is both a legal and moral case for reform. Strengthening human rights protections, promoting legal awareness, and ensuring justice for all citizens, regardless of how they identify, are essential steps toward a more just and inclusive society.
That report highlights the legal frameworks in place and the gaps that still leave many vulnerable. But behind every law are real people, such as advocates, legal experts, and those directly affected by gender-based discrimination and violence. Now, to dive deeper, we are joined by Dr. Edwin Arum and Dr. Oluchukwu Obioma. They are both lecturers and lawyers from the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, and we'll be discussing the realities on the ground, the challenges of enforcing protective laws, and what meaningful legal progress looks like, not just on paper, but in people's lives. Thank you so much for joining me on this program. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
You guys look very, very loyally.
That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Okay. So our conversation today, of course, we are looking at, the law and, when it comes to like gender issues. So from your professional perspective, how do our legal systems currently address discrimination and violence based on gender?
Okay, first of all, whenever we are talking about legal system in Nigeria, the first instrument we look at is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the ground norm and the foundation upon which every law in Nigeria stands. Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution is a very powerful law that spoke about everything discrimination. And we must understand that discrimination works in two ways. Either withdrawal of favor from someone or giving favor to another person. So because people think that whenever we are talking about discrimination, we are talking about when you deprive somebody of something. Even when you give somebody an additional favor other than what you've given to others, it is still discrimination. So I would say that the Constitution, Section 42, there are several subsections in Section 42, but particularly Section 42, subsections 1 and 2 are very veritable when it comes to laws against discrimination. Then we also have the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, particularly sections 1, articles 1 and 15. Now that declaration made it very express that every human being is born equal and with dignity. So, but as we dive deep, we will touch several other aspects of those laws. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because there are a lot of laws. I know we're talking about discrimination. It's not just maybe gender, but identity. Now, identity can be religious, it could be sexual, it could be disability. Then, of course, gender and race and the rest of them. And like he's mentioned, there are other laws. We have the Same-Sex Prohibition Act of 2014 that in Nigeria it cuts down, it prohibits same-sex relationships and marriages and the rest of them. Then we also have our Disability Act 2018 that provides access and and protects these people that have disability from discrimination. So every building, for example, in Nigeria is supposed to have access for people with disability and equipment that will benefit them. Other laws, we have the Violence Against Persons Act, because sometimes this violence comes with gender. And this act is a federal law, but of course some states have demonstrated, like Enugu State has demonstrated that law. So it has provisions in that law that's supposed to protect different genders, races, other identities from these forms of violence. So we have a lot of laws in Nigeria.
Okay, so now the laws that we are focusing on now are gender-based laws.
Okay.
Basically. So, and you said there are a lot of laws around this. So can you walk us through the various laws like you've talked about? What are those laws when it comes to discrimination against, or gender-based discrimination, gender-based violence, and other gender-related laws? Can you just walk us through and give us an insight on those laws for people that don't know?
All right. There's something you must understand in Nigeria. The laws are not just made for a gender, but laws make provisions for protection of people. Like the section I quoted earlier that says nobody should be deprived anything based on the person's sex. And when the law spoke about sex in section 42 subsection 1, it's talking about sex as in gender, male or female. Then in Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015, like she mentioned, still captured men and women. So if you're looking for laws that will say, okay, this one is for women, you will not see it. It's just general laws, but each of them have provisions that go to men and women. But when you are talking about decided cases, that's when you can now come to be more specific. Now, I'll give you just 3 cases. The first one is the case of Mojeku and Mojeku. Now, in the case of Mojeku and Mojeku, the court reiterated the rights of female children to the inheritance of their father's property. Of course, this is an Igbo setting where people believe that the bloodline runs with the male gender, and based on that, women will not benefit. But Mojeku said no. Then you now come to the case of Okeje and Okeje, still insisted that you should not remove female children from benefiting. Then there is another case I'm trying to remember, but it's the case of, I think, Omolewe and the Nigerian police force, where a pregnant woman asserted her rights, that you cannot deprive a pregnant woman of certain rights only because she's pregnant. So these are specific cases, and most prominently is the case between the Association of Muslim Students versus the Lagos State government, where some Muslim students were, restricted from joining others in the class, mainly because of the fact that they insisted on wearing their hijab. And the Supreme Court stated it that denying female Muslim students the opportunity of wearing their hijab to class is not just a discrimination based on religion, but it's also a discrimination based on gender.
Okay, and to even add that point, we, apart from the laws they pass in Nigeria, there are also international laws and treaties that Nigeria is signatory to. So, for example, we have one, CEDAW. Since you're looking for the one that maybe women, that one relates to women, and Nigeria has domesticated it. It provides extensive provisions for protection of women against violence and against discrimination. So we have a lot of laws in Nigeria. The issues we have in Nigeria is the enforcement of those laws.
Exactly. Now I'm coming to that, because I want you to speak on the strengths and weaknesses of these laws, particularly these anti-discrimination, laws. Since you said it's not particular to any gender, but
for example, let me talk about the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015, which I said is a federal law. Now, part of the problems we have in Nigeria with that law is that not every state, because although it's a federal law, each state will be domesticated for it to work in that state. We say a lot of the northern states have not domesticated it. Enugu has domesticated, for example. So you see that those states that have not domesticated it, those provisions, which are very beautiful provisions, can't work in those states. Also, another problem we have is the enforcement, the willpower to even enforce those laws, because Nigeria as a country has a lot of laws, but most times you see that the security officials do not have the willpower. Sometimes, even in the issue of marriage and battery and violence against women in marriages, you will see that you come to the police to report and tell you it's family matter, go and settle it. So all these things are problems that we are having with these laws, and they make the laws make it not work, because the enforcement of the law is the meat of the law. If not enforced, then the law is useless, just as beautiful as the paper it is on. So that's one of the problems we have.
All right. Thank you very much. In addition to that, most of the people to enforce the laws don't even know the laws.
Yes.
So how do you enforce what you don't know? Programs like these are programs where enforcement agents should even get to know about some of these laws. I had an interaction with someone, I won't mention the agency, but one of the law enforcement agents, and it was very obvious that he knows practically nothing about the law. So I think that there is a need for education, and in a situation whereby some people do not even know the laws, the rights of citizens, there is no way they can protect it. That's one. Number two, people bring about their individual biases into enforcement of the laws. I'll give you two examples. Now, the reason I'm giving these two examples is that they're already in the public domain. Sometime in Nigeria, a woman was elected as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, if there are people that should stand up for gender equality, they should be the lawmakers. But the way that woman was treated as a member of the House of Representatives, the way she was forced to resign, the crisis that rocked the House during that administration, that she had no option than to throw in the towel. You now see that when from the top, people do not want to do the right thing, there is no way you expect the enforcement agents below to do otherwise. Now, secondly, still on that woman, because I followed very well during those times, prior to her becoming the Speaker of the House of Reps, she brought a bill to the House of Reps, that was 2006, clamoring for men and women equality in marriage. That bill died on arrival. It didn't even go to the second reading. One of the members of the House of Reps from the North said something. He said, "Are you trying to tell me that you want myself and my wife to have equal rights in marriage?" He said, "It cannot happen." And immediately they said, those in favor that the bill should go to say aye. Nobody said aye. When they said nay, you had many baritone voice, nay, and they killed it like that. So once the people at the top bring in their individual gender emotional biases into it, it will not work. Then thirdly, let me just leave it at the third one. most times, some gender-based violence are perpetrated by the people of the same gender. For instance, these people called Umuada, the way they enforce some of these laws, the way they bring the widow and scrape her hair, the way they insist that you must prove that you are not the one that killed our son, you will now see that when people of the same gender perpetrate such violence against themselves, it now becomes difficult for even the police, law enforcement, to come in. They will tell you, if I should use vernacular, no, you people should go and settle it. So, once you get it wrong from the top, definitely you won't expect the people below to do otherwise. And then knowledge of those provisions, and like my colleague said, the willpower of the government to enforce it is very necessary.
And that situation is, even when the court goes ahead to make these decisions, they do not make it such a way that it will cover all women. For example, we celebrated Ukeji and Ukeji because it allowed women inheritance rights. But you see, they make it general. So although the pronouncement is that, but any woman that wants to inherit, you still have to go back to court to get your own decision. And so what we are fighting now is, can the court please give us general decision that any woman will not have to go to court again to enforce? Just go ahead and get the benefit. That's the one problem we're having. Let them make it, let the enforcement be general. Let everybody be able to go ahead and assess these rights that we already have, you know. So I think those things will help that this gender-based violence can be curbed. I know it will never end, because under, like what he was saying, some people have this mentality that I passed through it. I had this situation, a personal friend, you know, who the husband was beating her. It went, of course, she contacted human rights activists, went on the news and everything. So I now asked, did you speak to your mother-in-law, for example? This is this man's mother. She said the woman passed through it too. And she said, I will never leave my marriage no matter what. So I said, okay, what of your sisters-in-law? She said, everybody's being beaten.
Wow.
5 boys and all of them are beating their wives. So everybody's being beaten. So she's the one that said, I will not, my family, I didn't see my father beat my mother, so I will not stay. And what did she do? She walked away. You see? So there was nobody she could talk to, because all of them had taken it. I'm like, I passed through it, so manage the way in Didi. And, you know, go through it. So when she said, I can no longer take this beating, he was beating her even in pregnancy. She walked away with 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. So sometimes the laws and even the people enforcing, even the courts, if they're able to take care of some of these things, it will help. As gender violence can be curbed, at least to a large extent.
So,
yes.
So from what you've both said now, I'm starting to think that the law is a bit limited in our society, particularly when it has to do with cultural influences.
Yeah, the enforcement of the law is limited, not the law, because Nigeria is a country that has a lot of laws. In short, if you sit down and see the amount of laws we have in Nigeria, you have law for any kind of thing. But the problem is the enforcement of this law. First of all, even awareness. Some people do not even know we have these laws. And then the enforcement, people do not have the willpower. We have corruption. Then traditional. You know, some of these gender-based violence, if you do not go through this, they tell you, they will bring in a lot of traditional or cultural things.
Yes,
I'm like, oh
exactly.
no, these gods or what. So those things perpetuate this violence. They do. Traditional beliefs. Because there's a project I'm doing or something like this, and we're saying, how do we even meet our traditional rulers and these people at this, because this problem, we have to take care of it from the roots. Can we even reorientate them that these things are supposed to be stopped? There's, you know, this culture can be changed. Even religious beliefs, they can be enhanced. If you can start from there, I think we'll go a long extent to try to curb this problem.
So, like you also said, even religion too is also is a very big factor.
Yes, it's a big factor. It's a big factor.
Wow. But do you think that our legal systems currently adequately protect individuals from violence or discrimination?
Yes, like she rightly said, if the laws we have on ground are properly implemented, everybody will be protected.
So how can these laws be implemented? Because we are saying if they can be implemented. Meanwhile, there are a lot of reasons why it's not being implemented. So at what point?
Well, that is why we are having programs like this for the public to know and to step up. Especially, one thing we must understand is that that's why we need good leaders.
Yes.
Leaders who want to get the right things done. Who would say that things will not remain the way they've always been. Now, there is a leader that will come in, the person will dust up some of these laws and will begin to implement them. Now, there is something we say in Igbo, that when the community is not good, the leaders are benefiting from it. If I should use vernacular, nobody burundinze. Now, in a situation whereby ndinze, the rulers, will keep their their profits aside, so when leaders stop benefiting from irregularities, the country becomes good. So that is why we need good leaders. And another thing I want, which I'm encouraging the public, let's get more women into power. When we get more women into power, it will be balanced. Although I still understand the fact that some of the times women in power do not support themselves.
Yeah,
I don't want to quote a very popular case that happened not too long ago. However, when we get more people into power, they will channel the attention of the government from the usual patriarchy to, what it ought to be, the balance. So the best thing, get the good leaders. When you get good leaders will insist that offenders must be punished. If you go against a lady, do you know how many ladies that report matters in the police stations and those matters die instantly? But there are leaders that will be in power and make sure that every matter reported is adequately handled. Every case that comes to court must be properly, looked into. And when judgments are given, judgments will be enforced. If the court says, allow this woman to have this job, they will insist that the woman has the job. This is the function of the leaders, the function of the government. But the problem with Nigerians is that we will cry. The politicians have killed us. We want to die. And after 4 years, you will come back again having an opportunity to remedy the wrong. They will still give you a bag of rice, give you t-shirts, and give you 2K. You still go and vote the wrong person, reinforcing the irregularity. And once you keep doing it that way, the country will never be good.
Another aspect of this is the judges. We need more activist judges. It really pains me when I hear a judge say, my hands are tied. Untie your hand. Untie it. Untie the hand.
Very necessary.
Because, what he said that really resonated with me was that sometimes it's even women that perpetuate this against fellow women.
Exactly.
There was this report about a woman. She had a new baby and she had a house help, a girl. And this girl came to watch TV and she beat this girl and she died. This is a woman. This is a small girl. So sometimes it's women that perpetuate this violence against other women. If we have judges that are activists, that will insist that the right thing should be done. I won't mention names, but there was this government parastatal I once worked in. And if you bring any case of rape, it will disappear. Even the file you will not see. I just noticed that people generally did not believe that there was anything rape. In short, I went to the court with my principal, and one senior lawyer was saying, why are you people talking about rape? What do you want men to do? And I lost respect for this person.
Someone actually said
yes,
that?
Yes, he said it to us. Why are you talking about rape? So what do you want men to do? And I'm like, I felt cold. I lost all respect. So some people do not even believe that these things are real. Some people, and another issue is that the people that you are going to enforce, for example, let me give you a scenario. Let's say you go to court and this judge has beaten his wife, and you come to court that your husband beat you. Will he give you judgment? So he will see you as that wicked woman, a type of his wife that he has beaten. So the case will go against you. You see, you go to the police that your husband is beating you. Maybe he has beat his own wife before coming that morning, and you will join into the problem. And this thing is both men and women. The whole problem continues. So I will add that we need more activist judges. Judges that will look at this situation and say, no, it cannot continue. I will give this judgment and insist that it is enforced. I think it will help our situation, because sometimes we learn by, if somebody is punished, other people will learn. Sometimes it helps to learn.
Speaking about that, you know, like you said, most cases being reported, nothing is done about it. And then, you know, when we hear in the news that, oh, somebody was in prison for wife battering, or maybe the wife died in the process of domestic violence, he has been taken to prison, and a sentence is going to be, and we wait years and we don't hear anything at all. So that means the judges too are part of, should I say they are what's the word, conspirator? what's the terminology for that? when you are part of doing a criminal act, you did not do it yourself, but you are an accomplice. Exactly. But and it's so rampant, and so people don't see any action taken upon perpetrators of the act. And
okay.
Can you speak to that? Because I don't, it's a...
Okay, recently a judgment was given by the Supreme Court affirming the death penalty of one of the music...
After how many?
I think that was just 3 years. That was fast, considering how criminal offenses are handled in Nigeria. There are several cases that might be in court for 10 years.
Some 20.
Some 20.
Why so long? What is the reason for that?
Well, that's why we need reforms in the system. We need more courts, more specialized judges, and also to try to make things fast. Okay? So that sentence that was given, I don't think, no, not the Supreme Court, I think it's the High Court that gave that judgment. Yes. The death penalty is the High Court, not the Supreme Court. I'm sorry for that. So now, people will hear and learn. But let me tell you, the reason everybody heard that case is because the woman is popular.
Yes.
What of the unpopular ones?
Yes.
So, but it's also good that these ones was blazed abroad for people to know that you don't do things and allow it to lie low like that. Now, some of the times, the judges might not necessarily be accomplice, but there are times we might have poor prosecution of the cases. Because there are some times that prosecutors, I believe, if the government can hear me, we should train our prosecutors. Let them not just do it like mere formalities. If I should use the Nigerian terminology, they will say anywhere belly face now front. No, train them. Number one, analyze the facts and present the facts in such a way that the judge will understand and tilt towards you. Because the judge is deemed to have his eyes covered. And criminal matters are proved beyond every reasonable doubt. And you must be a professional to get that done.
Yeah.
In a situation whereby the police officer or the prosecutor prosecuting a case does not even believe in the case that he's prosecuting, does not even believe that there is violence against women, might even be doing the same thing, he doesn't put in the effort to prosecute. And let me tell you one thing, if a judge goes ahead to give judgment when there is poor prosecution, the judge might have his name dragged to the NJC for descending into the arena. Because a judge is supposed to be neutral, which means, and if a judge is neutral, it simply means that if you fail to prove your case, you will lose the case, even if you're right. And that's why they say that lawyers are liars. But we don't lie, it's just that there is poor prosecution. So people who prosecute these matters should try their best to do the best. And there is one thing we need to do. It's still part of social engineering. We need to rewire our minds to know that men and women are equal, the same, but differentiated in responsibilities. There are things that men should do. There are things that women should do. We have different responsibilities, but we are the same. Like as we are here now, some people are behind the camera. They are manning their post. There are some people doing the presentation. We all need each other. Nobody is better than the other. And in a situation whereby we know that though differentiated in responsibilities, but we are the same, Men will work towards the protection of women. Women will also work towards the protection of men. And then the society will be what it ought to be.
Because another aspect of this is that some women, because of this so much, discrimination and bias, they now go the other way and now begin to push for maybe feminism and, kind of pushing for men to be degraded. At a point, there was so much of the girl child, training of the girl child, that they started relegating the boy child to the background.
Exactly.
The people now started again, the boy child, I think that we don't have to put anybody down. I think it can be balanced. I think because some people now say, oh, the patriarchy is the problem. It's not the problem. Like he has said, if they teach, it's clear to everybody that we are all the same. We are all equal. We just have our different roles and, differences, I think it will help in treating each person, instead of looking at that, maybe the strength of a man as something to use to relegate women. You see as something that's used to protect. But I like to be very careful so that we don't, see maybe the men as now the bad people that have to be brought down, because we will still have a problem with now trying to, okay, we elevate the men again. So reorientation will go a long way. And it's continuous, because these things are long held, understandings. Sometimes there are traumas that are passed from generation to generation. Exactly. So the grandmother has told the mother all men are bad. And then the mother tells the child, and there are events that have solidified these notions
and it's
into
an endless cycle.
So it becomes a cycle of trauma, passing this trauma from generation to generation. I think we can break it, a constant reorientation. Then those who are trained, could give positive examples. If people can see positive, because someone said that men learn from example, right? They don't learn from sitting down to hear. If we can have positive role models for men, that this is the proper way this thing should be done, this proper way should be done, I think it will go a long way to curbing all these vices.
That's a very good one, actually. I like that line of thought. Now, aside from domestic violence or whatever, when it comes to workplace, particularly professional workplaces, for instance, let me just bring it down. You both are lawyers, and it's a very professional, field. Have any of you experienced any form of discrimination or bias in the line of your work, either dealing with clients or, your fellow colleagues?
Personally, as a lady, I've not. Because one thing I'll tell some ladies is that sometimes we want something handed to us because we are women. But it doesn't work like that. If you want, some people say, or pay. I've not had a problem like that. Some women go about saying you want equal pay with men and all that. If you want equal pay, do equal work. Just like that. Nobody's going to hand you anything on a platter of gold. Anything you want, you work for it. If you want to work as many hours as the men do and do as much as they do, of course you get equal pay. So I've not had that issue. If you come in, even if some people, maybe they may be taken aback, it leads to some situations. But now you come in, put your A game, you are intelligent, what you are saying is making sense, they will look for you again. Because at the end, they're not looking for the gender, are you getting the work done?
So you've not had anybody tell you they can't work with you because of...
No.
Oh.
Okay. Let me draw an example from the both of us.
Okay.
Coincidentally, we've been moving together. We started working for University of Nigeria at the same time. Started working on our PhD, that's our doctoral programs, the same time. We got the same time, the same grade, everything. We've been moving together. The same. I don't think there's any special privilege that has been given to her or given to me either. Yeah. So we've been moving together. However, the discrimination is still there, not in our setting, but generally. There are some clients that when you come to, and they will, oh, is he a female lawyer you brought? I don't want her. Cholo lawyer moke karaka, as in give me a strong male lawyer. So they believe that it's those male ones that can shout in court, they'll say, no, I don't want the women. So you see that even the clients themselves, including women,
wow,
most of them don't hire female lawyers. For instance, I go to court almost every time. some of the matters relating to even domestic violence, it's the male lawyers that handle them. So there are times that people look at the female lawyers and say, I don't want to work with this one, that's one. Then another problem that some people go through in the workplace. Now I'm going to sound a bit different now. Is sexual harassment.
Okay.
Men and women are harassed in the workplaces. But the truth of the matter is that society pays attention more when a woman says, I'm sexually harassed. I was going through the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act earlier today. So I was now made to understand that sexual harassment is not just when a person does anything physical. Even side comments on somebody's sexuality. And these are comments that people hear every day. I've had several cases where people meet me and said, my boss in the office is insisting that I must follow him to a birthday party. And I now ask the person, is following your boss to a birthday party in line with your work and the contract of employment? He said no. I said, but what time is this birthday party? The person is saying 9:10 p.m. Now, why will your boss insist that you follow him? And in the process of following, he will want to touch. He will want to crack some jokes. It's still in the office. Sexual harassment. There are still several times that a boss insists that the only people that will get benefits are the women. There is a person's example, I won't mention names. The person was sacked. I know the person, I know both the person, I know his boss. The person was sacked. And the reason the boss sacked him, and this is one of the smartest lawyers that office had, and said, it's because we can't pay you. It wasn't up to 1 week they sacked that boy. They employed one very beautiful, fair lady. Now, you said you cannot pay this person. That's why you laid him off. If you cannot you downsize and work with the downsized staff. But you downsize to bring somebody on board. So the reason I'm saying it is that when somebody is working, and like I told you earlier on, discrimination can be giving special benefits or pulling away benefits. And a person is withdrawn from work to give it to another person. That's discrimination. When you make side comments, that's discrimination. When you hide some information from some people, because there are some bosses that be like, it's just men in my circle in the office. You now say, please, this is going on. Those people will hear the information and they will progress. That's discrimination in the workplace.
So it may be unpopular, but I have another perspective to this.
Okay.
Sometimes gender favors women. There are some cases that once it comes up, as a lawyer, like I said, I was a government parastatal. I stayed in for like some months. It is a case of rape, abuse, maybe children, women. They will take that file and give it to a woman. Because they know that if they leave that file in the office, it will get lost. They will give it to you. So you'll be going to court with it, doing the matters yourself. So sometimes it will favor the woman more, you know. And then sometimes if you're in the office and a woman is looking for something, a man is looking for something. I don't know, I don't know the special privileges, but sometimes the woman will get it faster than the man. They just tell you locally, she will get it. So it's not every time that the gender favors women. Sometimes that gender favors the women. You know the reality of things. Like somebody said that men have to fight for everything they get. Sometimes women don't. If you look beautiful, maybe you have some charm, you will get. He gave us an example of, his staff coming to his house, their car broke down, and the men, so the lady sits inside the car, and 3 men we are on the road trying to flag down, but nobody stopped. Like these 3 armed robbers, nobody will stop for you.
Yeah.
So they all borrowed themselves sense and entered the car and told the lady to. 3 cars stopped. She now said, I have my colleagues, and they joined. You see, so
Yes.
sometimes gender favors women. So of course,
Okay.
sometimes it can be discriminatory, but sometimes it can favor women.
All right, so on a final note, what do you have, or what are your 2 cents, your opinions on how things can get better when it comes to like the legal system and how particularly implementation of these laws? Because apparently we have the laws, it's just the implementation. So finally, what do you have to say, in response to that?
Okay. Like I said earlier on, we need to rewire our minds. We need to understand that what we have believed, or rather that the fact that we have believed something for several years does not mean that that thing ought to be right or is right. So there is a need for the society to be re-engineered, rewired, to know that we need to eschew every form of violence, discrimination, both on men and women. And number two, try as much as possible to put credible leaders who would insist that the right thing should be done. If we do it this way, I believe that we'll get the laws working for us again.
Okay, my own perspective, in addition to what he has said, I would appeal to the judges to be more activists. Don't, your hands are not tied. Go ahead and take these decisions that will favor. Go ahead, and if you start it, because in law we have legal precedents, and this, somebody relies on this case, another person relies on this case, very soon will change the trajectory. It becomes the new norm. Yes, it will help a lot.
Thank you so much, Edwin and Oluchukwu. I had a very fun time with you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
very
having
much.
us.
Okay, so we'll go on a very short break, and when we come back, the program continues. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is still Gender Perspectives on Signature TV. Now, when it comes to laws that protect people from discrimination and violence based on gender or identity, there's a lot of confusion, what's actually true and what's just a common misconception. So in this next segment, we are going to break down some of the most widely held beliefs about how the legal system works or doesn't work for men and women. Are anti-discrimination laws enough on their own? Is violence based on identity always recognized as a hate crime? And does the legal recognition guarantee real protection? Well, let's separate the truth from the myths and get to the facts. As we've seen today, the legal responses to discrimination and violence based on gender are complex and far from perfect. And while there are strides being made, much remains to be done to ensure that the law protects all individuals, regardless of their gender. But the fight for equality doesn't end with legal reforms. It's up to all of us, advocates, lawmakers, and communities, to keep pushing for change and hold our legal systems accountable. Thank you so much for joining us on this important journey. Remember, justice is not just a legal concept, it's a lived reality. Stay tuned to Gender Perspectives for more in-depth discussions on the issues that matter. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms at Signature TV and stay tuned to our SLTV channel 265. My name is Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. Enjoy the rest of your day.